Hello! In this video we're gonna talk a bit more about mathematical expressions in LaTeX. We've seen before how to build a simple mathematical expression inside an equation environment, which would work something like this. We need to begin an equation, and whatever we begin we end as well. And inside the begin and end environment we can write whatever equation we have, something like this. And we saw that whenever we do this, we have another equation here, which is automatically numbered, with a number usually coming the right hand side of the page, and in sequence to whatever came before that. In some cases you might want to not have this number here, you might want an unnumbered equation, and that can be achieved very simply in LaTeX by using, instead of equation environment, the equation star environment. Remembering that if you begin equation star, you need to end equation star as well. So if we build our PDF like this, you see that the same equation now does not have a number here on its side. So we can start writing more equations here that does not follow the numbering order that we had before. This start version of an environment works for many other environments as well, such as tables or figures, and even sections, subsections, and chapters as well. Another thing that you might want in your mathematical expressions are delimiters. So instead of saying that we need a k times delta x, we might want to spell that out as x2 minus x1, for example. And we might need to encompass this in parentheses like this. And if we write parentheses directly, in this case, it might look actually alright. But if, for example, you have more complicated expressions inside these parentheses, so for example, if you have a fraction, something like this, you will see that if you write parentheses simply as typing it like this, they do not follow the size of what is inside it. So that's why we write delimiters in LaTeX with a bit more formality. And for that we will use /left and /right for these delimiters. So if we do it this with /left parenthesis and /right parenthesis, we'll see that now it will adjust its size to whatever is inside it. And you can start having something very complicated here inside, and you see that the parenthesis will always match its size. And you don't have to use only parentheses, you can have also square brackets or braces and other types of things as well. And you see that braces, for example, comes with left brace and right brace varieties. So if we build our document like this, you see that now we have curly braces encompassing this fraction here. So there you have many options of delimiters in LaTeX that you can use. Another thing that we might want is that if you have a system of equations, you might want to put all that inside a single environment. So for example, if we have the equations for dynamical systems in state space representation, we will have the state equations like this, and we need another set of equations which gives us the output, something like this, or any other type of or system of equations that you have. If we do it like this, first we need to have two equation environments, so they are in separate entities actually, and you see that there's sort of a space in here, it's not very obvious that these two equations are related. So you might want to write all this in a single environment. And we have many other environments, mathematical environments, other than equation. We can use, for example, the align environment, which allow us to do, among other things, have multiple lines of equations. So we can have multiple equations inside a single environment, something like this. But the align environment has a few other quirks. We need to have ampersand equals, so we can actually have the alignment of the equations. And for us to have an extra line in LaTeX, for us to enforce a new line, we can use the double slash notation. So if we build this, we'll see a few things. First, we'll see that the two equations are sort of together. They are in the same environment, and we'll see that the spacing between them makes it a bit more obvious that they are linked together. Another thing that we see is that both lines, both equations, they are numbered. And we might want to have just one number for the system of equations. And inside the align environment, we can use the command no number for the line that we don't want to have a number beside it. So if we build it like this, we'll see that the first line will be numbered in the sequence of the equations that came before it. And the second line, because of this command here, will not have a number. And if you have a very long system of equations, say 3, 4, 5 equations, you can choose where this number will be just by putting no number in the respective equations. Another thing about the align environment is that, as the name says, it can align the lines of equations about something that you choose. So for example, it's common to align things by the equal sign. So in the case that I have more things in this side here, something like this for example, we'll see that the left and the right side of the equations, they are in different length, but both equations are still aligned by the equal. So the equal of this equation is right on top of the equal in the second equation. And the align environment also allows us to do a few other things. Instead of aligning things one below the other, we can have equations in a tabular form. So if we have something of the sort, we want to spell out all the state variables that we have, for example, we can have something like this for the first, and by using the e sign or the ampersand sign, we can have many other equations in the same line. So I can have the x2 and the x3 in the same line. So if I build that, we'll see that they are put in sort of a tabular form for me. And we can combine both things. We can have, just for this to look a bit smarter, we can put the subscript outside the dot notation, just so that we can have the dots exactly up on the letter itself. But what I was saying is that we can combine this capacity of having multiple lines and multiple columns, so to say, inside the same align environment. So I can do something like this. I can have a new line, and on the bottom here I can continue my sequence of equations, something like this. And when we build this, we'll see that the equations will be in a tabular form, and we can start putting this many other lines and many other columns, as many as we see fit.